last month we got the introduction of Buffy out of the way, her first season, and they did the sensible thing that you should always do with any kind of media. You don't set up the sequel, you don't set up the next season, you close it. You know, back yourself into a corner if you need to, whatever. But you close that loop, and then the next season is its own thing. And by doing that, you know, they got the green light, they got a second season, and they could expand. You know, the first season was very much a, here's our characters, here's the world they inhabit, here's a few stories to give you an idea of what we could do with this. But we'll wrap it up nice and neat, and we'll kill off the big bad. It's fine. But then we had the second season. Like I say, we have the expansion of various storylines, various ideas, etc. It was very much a, here's what we can do now with a full run. You know, we've got like another, 12 episodes to play with here. And they were good and bad. You know, there's obviously the whole Spike and Drusilla Angelus arc that was like the big one running throughout the whole year. That was its own thing, and I think I'm going to cover that more perhaps in the follow-up video, because I think some of the best episodes of this season were all to do with that arc. But there were also awful episodes. From first viewing, and I'm still not able to get past it now, Bad Eggs is one of the worst episodes, not just of this season, but of Buffy as an entire 7-season televisual run, for me. If not one of the worst of any series, in fact. I can't think of an episode of something that I've hated more. And like I said, I've watched it again recently, and I tried my best to give it its time, to give it some respect. You know, it gave us the Gorch Brothers so that we could have the Homecoming episode in season 3, and not be like, who's this guy? What happened to his brother? What's he on about? We could have had someone else in that slot, though. It didn't really do much apart from obviously further the whole metaphor of like responsibility that obviously was trying to be drilled into Buffy. That's all it was there for, and I do think that the metaphor of the episode superseded the actual content of the episode, if that makes sense. In trying to get the metaphor hammered into your head, they forgot to tell a good story, I suppose, is a better way of saying it. But like I say, there were good episodes. I mean, we had the whole death of Jenny and all of that. That was an amazing moment. It really showed that there were stakes here. We had the whole development of the Angel-Buffy relationship, which, you know, there's still people now who cling to that, even though it was doomed, and, you know, they've tried to rekindle and it's all kind of fell apart, and various things have kind of gone wrong with it. You know, she says she'll always love him in some way, but then, you know, she's off with like Spike and the Immortal, etc. You know, there's all these things that just say it's just doomed. And I guess a lot of, you know, hopeless romantics love that idea, a doomed relationship, trying to make it work despite of in spite of everything. But, you know, it was a great arc, and, you know, the end of the season, of course, with having to send him to hell, even though he'd just been re-ensouled. It was a powerful moment. I can listen to Close Your Eyes, the piece of music written by Christoph Beck, the Buffy Angel Love theme, and it still gets me. I still get that little twinge, you know, inside. It's like everything just kind of feels real again for a moment. To do with that, you know, it is very powerful. It's sold really well, which of course obviously leads us into season 3 with Buffy's disappearance, because she can't deal with what she's done. And of course, you know, she comes out to her mother, which is not handled like I would have expected, like a sexuality coming out. It's just literally, this is what I do. I think that was a good choice. I think if they were trying to make it seem like a sexuality coming out, it would have maybe felt a bit forced, a bit like, oh, you tried to do that card, fine. There'd have been a lot of rolled eyes. There were already rolled eyes in season 4, when we get round to that, for obvious reasons. But I think it would have been a bit too heavy-handed, and I'm glad they didn't go for it. But I mentioned it briefly before, and I did say in the last video that, or the last one of you know, these, the discussion of season 1, there was something in particular about season 2 that was a little bit embarrassing for me, even though as a public sort of performer, entertainer, whatever you want to call it, My sense of shame and embarrassment is very much tiny and barely existent, but there is that little nugget. And that was my, dare I say, obsession with Spike. I even got a coat, and I had a red shirt, black t-shirt, etc. The whole 9 yards. I didn't dye my hair. James, after a couple of years, hated dyeing his hair. It's like, oh, do I have to? I'm coming back. I've got to dye my hair, please. But he did it. But I wasn't doing that. I wasn't going blonde. That was where I drew the line. But yeah, I went the whole 9 yards because it was part. I was growing up basically surrounded by this idea and this person and this rebel, because I was such a good, clean cut, aside from the psychological issues, I was such a good, clean cut, well, kind of, academic kind of child, never want to go on a tear and do anything like purposefully rebellious or anything like that. It wasn't until much later in my life, I think, that I really developed that rebellious streak. So Spike, in a way, was that escapism for me. I could live that vicariously, and I loved it for that. And of course, like many, for years I assumed that James Masters was not, in fact, an American. And then I first heard him speak with an accent, and I was like, who are you? Get out of here. It was terrifying. Although, yeah, in hindsight now, you listen to it, there's moments even in the first season, or his first season. We obviously had Lilac much later on, and Patronise. There are these tiny little things that just slip through. But yeah, he was such a great character, such a great influence on me, and Drusilla as well. The classic kind of stereotypical spaced out waif. Very delicate, slender, but deadly. Very deadly. So she was kind of a fascination for me. I wouldn't say like I had a massive crush on her in any way. I don't think it was ever that kind of relationship, I think, that I saw with her. I just saw her as this kind of very interesting, attractive, in a curiosity sense, I guess. I'm not saying obviously Juliet Lando's hideous or anything like that. I'm not saying she's not attractive, but that isn't the first thing that I went to her for. I think after the role reversal, when Spike was injured in the destruction of the church, that, I think, made me kind of tilt a little more to, okay, I'm getting interested now, because she wasn't just a frail waif anymore. She actually had some life and some pizzazz, and she was out there, kind of. So that, I think, changed my dynamic a little. But of course, obviously, the dynamic also changed with the reintroduction of Angelus to the party as well. But yeah, so this was a good season overall. Like I say, it gave us a better view into the world. It gave us a bit more to work with. It let us know, here's what we're playing with this time. And like I say, it did set up the next season. I think it set it up really quite well. Having a massive, awful event that just pushed Buffy to the edge. She's come out to her mother. She's ended up having to kill the love of her life, as far as she considers it, because what teenage girl doesn't consider her first real boyfriend to be the love of her life? I know my first proper girlfriend, I considered the love of my life at the time, and things like that. So you do make that stupid attachment in a way. You do fall too hard, too fast. But of course, there was the other big thing that was set up, which is the aftermath of season 1, and that was the death of Buffy, which led to the calling of Kendra. And I don't hate Bianca Lawson for the accent. I hate the dialogue coaches who thought that was a good accent to go with. Oh well. But yeah, we had Kendra, of course, and we got to see her a couple of times before she was killed off. I think as much as anything, that was to save us all from the accent. It was better at the end of the season. There was definitely some work that was done. It was definitely improved. It was still far from perfect. I think it was still a bit too hammy. But it gave us the big draw for some people of season 3, shall we say, in Eliza Dushku's Faith. But that's for next time. So yeah, overview. I loved this season for what it was. With most seasons, there's something to love there. terrible moments, but yeah, I think we'll get into some of the particular highlights in a couple of weeks' time or thereabouts. So please do join me then. But until then, as always, thanks for watching and take care.
That's me favourite shirt. That's me only shirt.